So another round of the messy shit that happens in the black churches. And I, specifically talk about black churches because I'm black and I was raised in a black church. Okay. I don't care about what all the other people got going on in their churches. We already know that shit messy too. But anyway, my mother called me randomly this morning saying she had a dream about me last night. Okay. And my mother is a severe alcoholic. Severe alcoholic. Okay. This woman is riddled with so much fucking trauma that she turned to alcohol a few years ago. And that was just it. So every now and again, she talks about this church trauma, that she's endured. That fucking list is endless. Okay. We grew up, she found a Pentecostal church when she was 19. Okay. I was 6 or 7 at the time. Mind you, my mother had me at 13. Okay. So she found this Pentecostal church. Okay. Church just is weird as shit. All right. Now, today, she tells me she went to reminiscing. I don't know how we got. Oh, no, I take that back. So one of my brothers passed away December of 2024, slightly before his 33rd birthday. Okay. Somehow we get on talking about my brother that passed. And she said this, the pastor's wife, the first lady of the church at the time, she called her. She reached out to her. I was like, wow, okay, that was shocking to hear. She said, yeah, she wanted to call me and, send her condolences, yada, yada, yada. So, of course, talking, about that led into more of, oh, yeah, do you know that this happened in the church and this happened at the church and this person was sleeping with that person and blah, blah, blah. So she proceeds to tell me, oh, no, we got on how the pastor himself was messing with young girls, eventually got charged for it, and how he, how she also found out that he was sleeping with one of the sisters in the church. Okay. And when she told me who this lady was, it was no shock to me. It was no fucking shock to me. This is why a lot of times I'll be posting and saying how religion and the church is a breeding ground for people who have already been traumatized to be even more traumatized and victimized. Okay. So when she told me who this woman was, it was no shock to me. Of course, it was a shock to hear it, but it was no shock to me to learn who the person was. This was a young mother. She had, I want to say, at least 4 or 5 kids, single mother. And she was just always seeming to be in distress. During testimony service, she's always crying about, how the Lord has done this. You can just tell the way she's always weeping and testifying that she's always in victim mode and that she'd be an easy target. Okay. So she said this woman called her one day and they were talking and she said the woman just flat out told her, I just had sex with the pastor. And so my mother was shocked to hear this. And the woman was like, my mama said, she asked this lady, well, oh my God, well, how do you feel about this? She said, well, this is the 3rd time it's happened. My mother said she was sounding real down about it. She was just like, I don't know how to feel about this. The woman who's telling her the story once told my mother, I don't know how to feel about this, but this is the 3rd time it's happened. And he's been paying me thousands of dollars. So this pastor was sleeping with one of the sisters. This married pastor sleeping with one of the young sisters in the church. She couldn't have been no more than, at the time that I remember the lady, early 20s, maybe. Again, she's a single mother, 4 or 5 kids, okay? And pastor done targeted her because he knew she was a weak one. He knew she was emotionally and spiritually weak. He knew she would go for it. And then you flashing thousands of dollars at her. Boy, the more I learned about this motherfucking church, woo, shit. This shit don't make no motherfucking sense. And my mother, she always has her stories that she goes back into and rewinds in her mind of the shit that she went through dealing with this church. It's fucking crazy. She was just like, I just can't believe how much spiritual abuse I went through with this church. And then when she finally did leave the church, she found a better church, which I told her, I opened her eyes to that. I say, Mama, that church was just as cultish. They were just a little more evolved with it. Because that first lady, she was just as bad as that first lady at the church you grew up in. She was just younger. But she was jealous of all the women in the church too. She was nasty toward most of the women in the church too. Shit don't make no motherfucking sense. So now this man not only was messing with young girls, he condoned a young minister to be messing with his underage daughter openly in the church. And then my mother even said, she said, you remember one service when he said that the pastor himself, she said on a Sunday, she asked me that I remember when this pastor said, if I once saved, the things I would do to some of the women in this church. I said, no, Ma, I don't remember hearing that. If I did, my young mind didn't really pay attention to it or didn't really comprehend what this man was talking about. I said, but Ma, this man, I do not remember that. She said, yeah, I remember it. She said he flat out told the church, if I wasn't saved, the stuff I would be doing to the women in this church. My guy, you were saved and you were doing the stuff in the church. Like what the... And then my mother proceeds to tell me one day it was ice cream being served after church. And the pastor asked her if she wanted an ice cream cone. So he gets her one and seductively licks the ice cream before he gives it to her. The shit I just keep fucking hearing about church. This is supposed to be a place where people go to heal. They go to get help. I found out one of the elders in the church had sex with this same lady who the pastor had sex with. Like there's just so much fucking perversion going on in that goddamn church. I'm so glad I wasn't victim to it. I'm so glad eventually I left because I moved with my grandmother for a while after my mother had married my father. I moved with my grandmother for a while because things weren't working out with my dad. But that church.